I'm 81 years old. I raised 4 children. I was married for 53 years. I cooked somewhere close to 40,000 meals. I stopped counting around the 30-year mark, but I never stopped cooking. And in all of that time, through all of those years, not one person ever sat across from me at this table and asked, "How are you?" And I mean, really. So I'm going to tell you now, whether anyone asked or not, because I've been waiting long enough. I was 23 when I married David. It was 1966, the spring, and I wore a dress my mother and I made together at her kitchen table over 2 weekends. She pressed it herself the morning of the wedding with an iron she'd had since before I was born. I remember the smell of the steam. I remember thinking I was the luckiest woman alive. And I was. I want to be clear about that. I was. David was steady and hardworking and kind in the way that quiet men are kind, not with words, but with presence. He showed up. He built things. He fixed things. He wasn't a man who knew how to say, "I love you," easily. But he was a man who shoveled the neighbor's driveway without being asked and came home every single night. In 1966, you understood that as love. I still do. We had Margaret in 1968, then Robert in 1970, then little Caroline in 1973, who came 6 weeks early and spent her first month in a hospital incubator while I drove 40 minutes each way to sit beside her and talk to her through the glass. And then Thomas in 1976, our youngest, our surprise, our joy. I want you to understand something before I go any further. I loved being their mother. I loved it. The house full of noise, the lunches packed, the homework at the kitchen table, the muddy boots by the door, the arguments I had to referee, the fevers I sat through, the nightmares I walked toward in the dark. I loved all of it. I was good at it. I found purpose in it, the way some women find purpose in careers or art or travel. My purpose was right there in those 4 faces. That was never the question. The question was always something else, something quieter, something I couldn't even name for most of my life. My days in those years, and I'm talking about roughly 1968 through 1987, nearly 20 years of raising children in the thick of it, my days started at 5 in the morning. I would be up before everyone. I made the coffee and stood at the kitchen window and had approximately 4 minutes of quiet before the house woke up. 4 minutes, every morning for years. I came to guard those 4 minutes like they were something sacred, which looking back, they were. They were the only minutes of the day that belonged entirely to me. Then came the breakfast, the lunches packed, 4 children, different preferences, different ages. Not one of them wanted the same thing. And the school runs, and the errands, and the housework that I did mostly alone because David worked long hours and I worked longer ones, just without the paycheck or the title or the commute that made it visible. I ironed his shirts. I supervised their homework. I attended the school plays and the parent-teacher meetings and the after-school activities, and I smiled through all of it. I was so good at smiling. I don't think I complained once in 20 years, not once. My mother had raised me to understand that a good woman keeps her home and holds her family together and does not make herself a burden. She said it plainly, my mother. Margaret, you are the heart of your home. Hearts don't complain. They just keep beating. So I kept beating. There was the winter of 1979. David had lost a large contract at work, a big one, the kind that shook him, and he was quiet for weeks in a way that worried me. Not his usual quiet, a heavier kind. I spent 3 months being his steady ground. I woke up cheerful. I kept the house bright. I made his favorite dinners. I didn't bring up money. I didn't bring up my own worries about money, and I had them. God, I had them. Because I was the one paying the bills, stretching what we had, moving amounts from one envelope to another, and hoping nothing came due early. I didn't say a word about any of it. I just held the ground so he could find his footing. And he did. By spring he had new work, and the cloud lifted, and we went out to dinner to celebrate, just the 2 of us, which almost never happened. I remember being across the table from him, thinking I should say something. I was so tired, David. I was so tired those 3 months, and I didn't say anything. And now I don't know how to say it, because we're celebrating, and the moment is wrong, and I don't want to take this from him. So I ordered the fish, and I smiled, and I said, I'm so proud of you, which was true, but it wasn't everything that was true. And then there's Carolyn, my second daughter, my early one, my fragile beginning, who turned into the most tenacious person I have ever known. When Carolyn was 17, she was accepted to a music conservatory 2 states away, full scholarship. She played the cello with the kind of focus that made you stop whatever you were doing just to listen. The conservatory letter arrived on a Thursday in March of 1990, and she came running down the stairs holding it, and her face, I can still see her face. Pure joy, undiluted joy. The tuition was covered, but the costs weren't fully. Living costs, travel, the things a scholarship doesn't reach. And I had wanted, quietly, privately, in a way I told no one, to go back and finish the nursing degree I had started and then set aside when Margaret was born. I had spoken to a program. I had even filled out the paperwork. It was sitting in the drawer of my nightstand, that paperwork, waiting for something I kept telling myself would come. And when Carolyn's letter arrived, I took the paperwork out of the drawer and I put it in the bin, and I worked out how to make the numbers work for her. I never told her, not once. She doesn't know. She calls on Sundays now from Seattle, and she tells me about her life, and I love hearing every word. She doesn't know there was a drawer. She doesn't know about the paperwork. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because I made that choice freely. I just wish someone had asked if I wanted to. And then there was my friend Eleanor. We'd known each other since we were in our 30s, since the children were small, and we were both running houses that felt like they might tip over from the weight we were carrying. We used to have coffee on Thursday mornings, Eleanor and I, and it was the 1 hour of the week where the mask came off a little, just a little. I remember once, this would have been around 1984, she put her cup down and looked at me and said, "Do you ever feel like you're invisible?" And I felt something shift in my chest, some door that had been sealed, swinging open just an inch. I said, "Yes. Yes, Eleanor, I do." And we sat there for a moment, the two of us, and I think it was the most honest thing either of us had said to another person in years. Then her youngest came in from the garden, needing something, and the moment closed. We picked our cups back up and talked about something else. We never went back to it. We never opened that door again. Eleanor passed in 2019, and I still think about that morning. I think about what might have happened if we'd kept talking, if we just kept talking. I was going to learn to paint. I decided it in 1988. Both of us had more independence by then, David and I. The children were older. And I went to the art supply shop in town, and I bought a set of watercolor paints and 2 good brushes and a pad of thick paper, and I brought them home, and I put them on the shelf in the spare bedroom, and I told myself I'd start on Saturday. And then something happened that Saturday. And then something happened the Saturday after that. And the box sat on the shelf unopened, while I went on being what everyone needed me to be. The box is still there. I saw it last month. The paints are dried through by now, I imagine. That was 37 years ago. I'm not angry about any of it. That's what I need you to understand. I love them. I love them still. I would make the coffee at 5 in the morning again tomorrow if I could. I would pack the lunches again. I would sit through the fevers again. All 22 of them I counted over the years. 22 fevers, and the nights of damp washcloths and small hot foreheads under my palm. I would do all of it. I just wish I'd known that giving everything wasn't the same as being a good wife and mother. I wish someone had told me that keeping something for yourself wasn't taking from them. I didn't know that. Nobody told me. The last of the children moved out in 1998. Thomas, our youngest, went to university in the September of that year, and David and I drove him and his boxes and his bicycle up to the dormitory, and we helped him unpack, and I hugged him goodbye in the stairwell, and then David and I drove the 4 hours home in a car that was very quiet. And then we were in the house, just the two of us, and the house was absolutely still. I walked through it that first evening, and I noticed things I hadn't noticed in years. A mark on the wall I'd meant to paint over. A tile in the bathroom that had been loose since 1989. The silence coming from rooms that used to have music in them, arguing in them, life in them. And I sat on the edge of the bed, my side, the left side, the side I'd slept on for 32 years. And I put my hands in my lap, and I looked at them. These hands, the hands that had cooked and cleaned and mended and packed and ironed and held and wiped and stitched this family together for 30 years. They were just sitting there in my lap, and they were empty. And I said it out loud. For the first time in my life, I said it into the empty room. I am so tired. I am so tired, and nobody knows. My hands were shaking, not from grief, not from anger, from the sheer unfamiliar weight of honesty. I had never said anything so true in my entire adult life. I had said it to no one, to an empty room, because that was the only audience I trusted with the truth. I sat there for a long time. David was downstairs. He'd turned on the news. I could hear the low murmur of it through the floorboards. And I thought, And this is the thought that stayed, the thought I've carried since. I thought, he doesn't know. He doesn't know I'm up here. He doesn't know I'm exhausted down to my bones. He doesn't know because I never told him. I never told him because I thought strength meant carrying it silently. I thought that was what a good woman did. I thought silence was a virtue. I understand now that it wasn't virtue. It was just silence. And silence doesn't protect anyone. It just makes the truth harder to find later. The years I can't get back are not the years of mothering. I want to say that plainly. I would not trade one morning of those 4 children's childhoods for anything. Not one fever, not one terrible report card, not one argument at the dinner table that left me exhausted and grateful in equal measure. What I can't get back is the version of myself I never introduced to anyone. The woman who had the nursing paperwork in her drawer. The woman who bought the watercolors and never opened them. The woman who sat across from Eleanor in 1984 and said, "I feel invisible," and then never said it again to a single living person for 35 years. I don't blame David. He was a good man. He loved me in the way he knew how. But I presented him with a woman who was always fine, always managing, always smiling, and he believed me. Of course he believed me. I was very convincing. I'd been practicing since I was 23. My children are good people. They are kind and they are successful. And they call regularly, and when they visit, they bring food. And they sit at this table and they talk to me about their lives. And I love every minute of it. They love me. I know they love me. But they love the version of me I perform for them. The tired one. The one who cried at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. when the house was dark and quiet. They never met her. Because I never let them. I introduced her to no one. Not even to myself. Not really. Not until it was very late. I don't regret the love. I regret the lie. The lie that I was fine. I told it every day for 50 years. And everyone believed me because I was very, very good at it. If you're listening to this, and I know some of you are women around 35, 40, maybe younger, maybe older, and you're running a house or raising children or holding a marriage together or keeping a job and managing everyone else's moods on top of all of it, I want to say something to you. Something I wish someone had said to me at your age. Say it out loud. Whatever you're carrying, just once. Say, I need help, to someone who can actually help you. I know it feels like weakness. I know you've been told by your mother or your church or your culture or just by the sheer weight of everyone depending on you that a good woman manages, that a good wife copes, that a good mother doesn't complain. I believed that for 50 years, and all it gave me was a pair of shaking hands in an empty room. What I didn't understand was this: disappearing isn't strength. Taking yourself down to nothing and offering the nothing to the people you love, that isn't a gift. It's a ghost. I was a ghost in my own home for decades, and everyone thought I was the foundation. If someone is reading your face right now and believing you're fine and you're not, please say something. You don't have to say everything. Just crack the door. Just say, "I'm tired," and mean it. Let someone know. I promise the world is more capable of surprising you than you think. I wasted years believing no one could hold what I was holding. I never gave them the chance to try. There's a book I found in a secondhand shop when I was 62, years after the bedroom, years after the overflow. A book called The Beauty of What Remains by Steve Leader. He writes about grief and loss and the love underneath it all. And reading it felt like someone had followed me around for 30 years and written down everything I'd never said. I read it in 2 sittings, and I cried for a long time afterward. Not because it was sad, because it described a life so close to mine that I felt for the first time that my experience had a shape, that it was real, that it counted. I also want to mention a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Don't let the title frighten you. It is not a wild book. It is a gentle one, really. It is about the parts of a woman that get set aside and forgotten over years of service and silence. I read it very late. I was nearly 70, and I thought, I should have read this when I was 30. But even at 70, it helped me find the woman I'd packed away. And one more, Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. She wrote it in 1955, and it reads like a letter from a woman you know. Quiet, wise, a little sad, and completely honest. A woman sitting by the water, asking herself what she's made of, what she needs, what she kept, and what she lost. I've given that book to my daughters. I hope they read it before they're 81. I hope they don't need to wait as long as I did. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor or a doctor or anyone trained in the science of the mind. I'm a woman who carried too much for too long without saying so, and I want you to do differently. If you are carrying something right now, grief, exhaustion, a sadness you can't quite name, a life that fits like a costume you're not sure you chose, please talk to a professional, a real one, someone who is trained to hold what you've been holding alone. You deserve that kind of care. You deserve to have someone whose whole purpose is to listen to you. Even if nobody ever told you, you were worth that. You are. I'm 81 years old. The house is quieter now. The table is smaller. Just the one I eat at in the mornings. The small round one by the window where I have my tea and I look at the garden. David passed 6 years ago. I miss him every single day. I miss him in a way that has surprised me, because grief, I've learned, is its own kind of honesty. When you grieve, you can't perform. There's no face to put on. The sadness is just there, right on the surface, and everyone can see it. And somehow that is the most honest I have felt in my entire life. My children are good people. I want to say that one more time. Margaret and Robert and Carolyn and Thomas. They are good and they are kind and they built good lives, and I am proud of every one of them. They don't know about the bedroom in 1998. They don't know about the watercolors. They don't know that their mother cries some nights, quietly, the way she did everything, because she is old now, and she is tired in a way that sleep does not fix, and because the truth has nowhere else to go except out. So it goes out at night, into the quiet, into this house that I have kept for 57 years. I'm learning something new at 81, something I thought I already knew how to do. I'm learning to tell the truth when someone asks me how I am. It is harder than you would think. After 50 years of, I'm fine, don't worry about me, the truth feels strange in my mouth. It feels too large. It feels like something that might take up too much space. But I'm practicing, slowly, imperfectly, the way I should have practiced my whole life. If any of this sounds familiar, if this sounds like your life, or like your mother's life, or like the woman you're becoming without meaning to, then I'm glad I finally said it. I'm glad I sat down at this table today and told the truth to someone who wasn't asking me to fix anything. You've given me something I didn't have enough of all those years. You've given me an audience that only needed me to be honest. Come sit with me again. There are more of these left to say.